how would you describe your 5-day exclusive negotiating window with Bregman?
I mean, it was more than 5 days. I mean, we were able to, talk to Scott for, the last, 6 weeks of the season. Of course, the closer it got to the end of the season, it started to heat up. And, we have had some really good, productive conversations. And so, we would love for Alex to come back. He's been really good here. He's been an outstanding part of the winning here in Houston. And so I would say that we've had productive conversations.
How would you kind of characterize what stage those negotiations are at right now?
I mean, it's still beginning stages, of conversations. I mean, I think, when players get to this point of being at free agency, I mean, they play all their career and they, a lot of these guys welcome free agency and, the fact that he's going to hit free agency, we get it. But, we are in conversation with Scott, to try to keep him here.
In those conversations, did you feel like you guys were on the same level, like playing field, I guess, as far as if you guys did throw numbers out, like were you guys in the same ballpark, or was there like work to be done to get there?
I mean, I would characterize it as optimistic, conversations, and as I said, Bregman's been a pillar here. And, Scott, was willing to, listen, and we had really good, productive conversations.
It's safe to say you have to kind of let him test the market first and let the market kind of set itself.
I mean, oftentimes with these players, I mean, they get this close to free agency. It's their right to test the market. We understand it. But just because he tests the market doesn't mean he doesn't want to play here. He just wants to test the market. We're going to have more productive conversations with Scott to hopefully get something done.
Aside from the qualifying offer, you guys made any formal offers?
Well, I can't go into offers being made or anything like that, but just understand that we are talking to Scott, and they are productive conversations. So I would leave it at that.
Tell us about the decision you guys had to make on Jose Urquidy and what went into that factor.
Yeah, difficult conversations. I mean, just managing the 40-man roster, and sometimes guys that you have to add, and sometimes need that the clubs may have. Sometimes you're going to have to outright certain guys, and it's always difficult to lose guys like Urquidy, who've been very productive here and have really good postseason games here, and so, but. To manage the roster and to do what's best for the team, sometimes you have to make tough decisions.
Yeah, I mean, how do you take the emotion out of that when you're talking about guys like him or Verlander or obviously Bregman that skins on the wall, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, look, you always have to put the team first. Sometimes, I may have a thought process, and then, I may talk to my guys, and my guys may say, hey, look, we think this might be better for the team, so sometimes even I have to yield to what's best for the team. And so, we always have to put the team first. And so putting the team first, we needed more roster spots, and we have things that we want to do to try to get better. And so, we decided to outright.
Did you guys discuss at all or modify contract with him before putting him on waivers? Did y'all discuss maybe reworking it to maybe a 2-year deal with lower than the first? I guess, did y'all have any discussions with him before you put him on waivers?
We've had discussions with the agents, but I can't get into any particulars. But ultimately, we had to make that decision. But we're like all of these guys, we had an opportunity to talk to the agents before we outright her.
Dana, you traded.
How much you want to bring back with Kikuchi?
Yeah, we would love to have Kikuchi back. I mean, his time here was pretty good. I mean, not sure where he's going to fall in the market, but ultimately he was very productive here in Houston, and his time here was well spent. He loved being here. He brought into a lot of things our pitching coaches tried to get him to do, and he had some success here. And so, we'd like to have him back. Of course, free agency it's difficult. Sometimes the guy going free agency and he ends up with another club, but we're going to try to make an effort to get him back. Have some conversations with Scott.
He go back to Japan a couple of days ago. Do you have a chance to talk to him after the season?
Yeah, we had a chance to talk after the season. Said our hugs and goodbyes, and kind of gave each other a fist pump. About how excited we were. We talked about both of us taking some heat for the trade, and it ended up in a good spot. And so we had really good conversations, and it would be nice to have him back.
Did you talk to Scott about it?
Yes, I've been in touch with Scott Boras about it, so we're definitely having conversations with. So of course, Scott has a few of these guys. So when we talk about multiple players.
Danny, you traded for Taylor Trammell. What did you like about him that you targeted him?
Yeah, sometimes these former first-round picks, they get with an organization and they turn the corner. I remember seeing him, as an amateur, and he was really good. And this is a guy that has some power. He's a left-hand bat. We got more right-hand bats in our outfield, and so if he could somehow, be the guy to turn the corner and give us some left-hand power, that we feel like that could be productive and good for the team. So he'll get some opportunity to turn some heads in spring training.
Last time we talked to you was about a month ago, and you said nothing's off the table. And now that you guys have had a month to maybe have meetings and kind of get more kind of a direct plan of what you want to do, kind of what is your biggest emphasis or priority now that the winter has officially begun?
Yeah, so the biggest priority is third base, without a doubt. We would love to have Alex Bregman back. It's our biggest priority. So, then if we could, do something to firm up, production at first base and, get some help in the outfield, maybe with a nice nice left-hand bat, to work out with Myers and McCormick. That would be good as well. And then maybe add some more depth to the bullpen. And as I've always told you guys, I'm always in the market for starters. So if we have any opportunity to acquire starters, through trade or what have you, we will do that as well.
You mentioned Myers and McCormick, so you anticipate tendering both of those guys' contract?
Yeah, look, McCormick had a down year. McCormick is a good player. We expect him to come back and at least get to like a 750 OPS or better. The year before, he was over an 800 OPS with over 20 home runs, and of course, the defense is really good. So, we have to check that one off as a bad year. It was a down year, and hopefully we can get him to bounce back because we really need him. And then maybe we can get him, some help where he doesn't have to face, all of the right-handers as much. That could be productive by getting a left-handed hitting outfielder that could really step in and do a good job. So those kind of things we're trying to do to improve this club, and maybe at certain points do some platoon, particularly if he's struggling. But ultimately, we're just trying to make certain moves to increase, more production in the offense. I thought we pitched well last year. I thought our bullpen, wasn't as good, but still productive enough that, we could have gone deeper. So we just need to improve the offense some, and, we need to get back to our big boys at the back end being really dominant, which I think could really happen this year.
If Bregman does go elsewhere, do you guys have the internal capability to replace him without going external for a third baseman?
Well, our mindset right now is that he's not going elsewhere and that we want to sign him. So if he ends up going elsewhere, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I'm going into this offseason with the thought process that we're going to get Bregman done. Hopefully, we can do it. And as I said, the conversations with Scott have been productive.
Do you have limitations on years, financial, that have been imposed in terms of Bregman or otherwise?
No, as I said, I can't get into the particulars of, years and AAV and money and different things like that. But just understand that we are having productive conversations. And, my vision is for Bregman to be here. So
there was some high-profile free agents last year who signed very late in the offseason and the spring training. Obviously, you don't necessarily control that yourself. From your guys' point of view, do you need some sort of resolution on his situation or your situation with him earlier in the offseason so that you can plan it if needed?
Look, ultimately, you want to get guys done as soon as you could, right? It's lowers my blood pressure to get him done as soon as we can get him done. I don't want this thing to drag on. He knows that we want him back. Scott knows that we want him back. He loved playing here, and so hopefully we can get it done sooner rather than later. If it drags out, it makes it more difficult. It's out of my control. If it drags on so far, we're going to try to put our best foot forward to get it done.
You talk about the amount of injuries that you guys have had the last 2 years. Does that impact at all the way you build out your roster for next year?
Well, the big thing is with the injuries is the pitching. So we'd really like to have good pitching depth. I thought last year, when we had to call up a young Bloss from AA, when we were struggling, of course, we can do a rotation, but we tried to do what we had to do to make it through the season. And then once we made the trade, firmed up our rotation, things started to go well for us. And so what we would like to do is make sure we have that pitching depth going in. It was really tough to bounce back from the pitching depth because we had so many starters hurt. At one point I think it was like 5 starters on the IL. That's very difficult to bounce back from. But our guys did a good job. We had some guys step up like Brown and Blanco. Arrighetti made some big starts, and of course Framber was who he is, all the time. And so, we'd like to build out a little bit more depth, hoping that we don't have 5 more guys go, on the IL in the rotation. That would be really devastating to us.
Speaking of, do you expect McCullers to be ready for spring training?
Well, right now, McCullers is playing catch, so that's a good thing. From talking to Jeremiah, he said, look, there's a chance he's going to be ready for spring training. Let's hope the fact that he's playing catch, he's back to feeling a lot better. And so I'm very hopeful.
Garcia still on track?
Well, you guys saw Garcia at the end. Throwing those lives, he looked really good. Up to 94, good breaking ball. And so there again, with these injuries, you never know. But we hope he's ready. We hope he's part of our rotation, so some of these other guys may be part of the depth. But I like the way he finished off last year at the end of the season. Throwing those sides, the ball was coming out well. In fact, some of our guys joked with him and said, hey, can you pitch one of these playoff games? So I'm very optimistic.
You guys paid the luxury tax this year. Is Jim willing to, if need be, is he willing to cross it again for a second straight year? Have you gotten that vibe from him?
I think Jim has been totally committed to us putting a championship club out on the field. I haven't felt one bit that, look, Jim is not willing to spend money. I think he's shown it. Last year we were over. This year we're, just about under. So ultimately, I think Jim will do what it takes to put a productive team on the field.
Talk about Forrest Whitley. Where does he stand with your vision for next season?
Yeah, that's a good question. So hopefully he's going to be a part of our bullpen. I think this is his time. He's shown some flashes last year of getting it up to 98, decent breaking ball. And I ran into him in the airport, on my way here. So, it was kind of exciting. I said, hey, I'm going to GM meetings. I said, we're going to need you. And he laughed, and he's excited. So I think Forrest, this is really his year because he's going to get an opportunity in spring training, to pitch out of the pen. And maybe this is the year where he turns the corner.
When he got on that hot streak in AAA, was there a notion to consider him at some point towards the end of last year? Or was it literally the ship had sailed kind of on last year and now you have to look forward to this year?
Well, toward the end there, we were really good in the bullpen toward the end. Especially when King came up and he was throwing well, Ort came up and he was throwing well. We got Nearest back. And so, he was throwing well. But, we had some guys that really stepped it up, and so we were in a pretty good position. The one thing is this year, I think there's going to be more opportunity for him. And so if he comes into camp, which we're hoping that he comes in and he's throwing the ball well, it'd be nice to see him come out of the bullpen, 6th, 7th inning, throwing 96 to 98 with that hard slider. So he's going to have opportunity, and I think this is his time. I'm hoping that he's ready to answer the call.
talking about both your corner and field spots. What did you see from DeZenzo last year, and where do you think he's if he's going to contribute to this team? Where do you view him long term, first or third, and kind of do you think he needs more seasoning in AAA, or kind of how does he factor into your plans?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got an opportunity, and he will get an opportunity to play at the big league level this year. I think he's going to get a chance to play some first base. I think he's going to get a chance to play some left field, depending on what happens, with Bregman. He may get a chance to play some third base, although Bregman would be the priority. But I think he will get some run. Offensively, if he could just turn the corner like he was swinging the bat in the minor leagues, that would be a really nice piece to add, to our big boys. And the fact that he has power, I think he's going to get an opportunity.
Do you view him maybe more as a first baseman, just maybe longer term?
Yeah, I mean, longer term, I think it's more first base. I think he's got a little more work to do at third base. Can he get it done? Yes. But if we have Bregman, it'd be tough for him to get reps there. I think more so first base with some potential to play left maybe on certain games if we're facing a right-hand pitcher and Singleton's playing. Or if he comes in the camp and he plays well, I mean, maybe first base would be his everyday job. I mean, we're very open to getting production from some of these young guys. I'm not afraid to go with young players. I mean, we did it a lot in Atlanta where sometimes young guys will step up. I like having the young players. I think it's important to teams to have young players always coming. And so I think Joe is very open to giving him an opportunity, to play every day. If he's the everyday guy, he's the everyday guy. He's going to get an opportunity. And you guys have seen glimpses of the potential, and, hopefully he'll continue to work through it.
Do you anticipate trying to upgrade first base, or are you good with Singleton and maybe DeZenzo?
Well, as I mentioned before, there's nothing off the table. I mean, if we get an opportunity to make a trade and we got a guy that we think could be an everyday first baseman without platooning, I think we'll do it, or we'll consider it. So there's nothing off the table. If we have any opportunity to get better, whether it's first base, left field, center field, whatever, I think we're going to exercise that right. So we're trying to get better. We're trying to get deeper into the postseason.
I think under the current ownership, the longest deal that's been given out is 6 years. Is going longer something that is a possibility? Do you know if there's a possibility if that is something that you guys would consider?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility. I mean, Jim has given out multiple 5-year deals. I mean, I don't see a problem with going to 6. I mean, he's going to be involved in all of these negotiations in terms of us keeping him in the loop. But I don't think that's going to hold Jim back from going more than 5 if he feels it's the right deal and it's good for the club.
How about beyond 6?
Yeah, again, I think if it makes sense for the club, I think Jim will allow us to do it, and he would welcome it. But it has to make sense. I mean, I don't think we're going to be in the business of giving, multiple 7-year deals or multiple 8-year deals. But if there's an opportunity to sign a guy that we feel, is going to be good for 6 or 7 years, I think Jim will do it.
You said nothing's off the table. I guess, how do you view trades in general, and can you envision a scenario in which you trade off your major league roster?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I like to solve problems, right? If we have a problem at a position, if we have a problem in a rotation, I'd like to solve that problem. And so if we can do it through trade, we'll do it. I mean, if we can use a major league piece to get 2 pieces that will help us solve problems, I would welcome it. If that deal shows up, because we're grinding every day, if we get that opportunity, we'll do it. But I don't want to trade major league pieces and weaken the team. It has to make sense for the team, and it has to feel like we're getting better.
it does seem like you have some surplus, though. Like whether it's pitching specifically, you have some surplus pitching just on the major league roster with McCann. So I guess would you be amenable to trading from like that surplus of pitching that you do have?
Yeah, I mean nothing's off the table. Like, but it has to make sense, and it has to be. We have to feel like, look, we're going to get 2 potential players for this 1 player or something like that. That makes a little bit more sense. To do that. I mean, I'm not like aggressively trying to get rid of starting pitchers, but if we have an opportunity to plug some holes and it makes sense for the club, we'll do it.
Try again to sign Farmer and Tucker.
Yeah, so both of those guys are good through 25. I think it's one of those situations as we get to spring training or maybe sometime during the season, we'll circle back on that. But they're both good through 25. Our priority right now is Bregman.
Yeah, how's that going so far?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions with Scott Boras, multiple conversations. So we hope that they've been productive, and we're hoping that some good things happen.
So you feel like you have a decent chance?
I think we have a really good chance.
A year ago, you guys spent to the top of the market for Hader. Why is it important to, why was having a guy at the back end that important, that valuable to you guys?
Yeah, I just think, in our world of baseball, you have to lock down the last 3 innings. And, even though those guys didn't fully pitch up to their potential, I thought they were still really good. Abreu, Presley, and Hader. I think we're going to be even better this year. I think they, locked down a lot of games, and I think Hader broke our Astros record of consecutive saves. And so, he had moments there where, he gave it up, but I think he gave like maybe 3 blown saves. But ultimately, I think it's important to lock down the back end of a game. I think it's demoralizing to a club if you lose multiple games toward the end. And we went on our long streak of winning when we, came back from 10 down. I mean, those guys were really doing well out of the bullpen. Our rotation was giving us good starts. We got on all cylinders, and we were able to come back from a 10-game deficit.
There's been a lot of discussion, for years about the volatility of relievers, right? What brings you to? Is it necessity, or the individual pitcher that gives you conviction that okay, we can make a long-term deal?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of what I talk about often. It's a combination of the evaluation of the player, the information and the data, and the makeup. And for a guy like Hader, he checked all 3 of those boxes. The makeup's pretty special. The data and the information on his pitches were really good. And of course, with the scouting eye, he looks really good. I mean, the ball's coming in 96 to 98. Pretty decent slider, and throws strikes, and he's aggressive, and he can strike guys out. So ultimately, he checked all those boxes, so we felt like we can go long term. And we know what the volatility of relievers, but this guy's relentless. He works hard. He prepares. His preparation's unbelievable. He's very conscious of his diet. He eats well. And so all of these things went into us making that decision.
Thanks so much, Dana.
How do you view, obviously, like Tucker and Wright, how do you view your other 2 outfield spots? You talked about Chaz earlier, but left field, do you think that's more of a platoon timeshare thing, or would you like to find someone that can play left field pretty regularly for you?
Well, I mean, I feel that Chaz McCormick could be an everyday left fielder. He showed us that in 2023. The problem was he didn't play as well last year. He knows that. He's working his tail off. He was just exchanging text messages with Joe the other day. Joe and I were talking, and he's already locked in. He's already starting to work. And so, we really want to give him the opportunity to turn the corner. But we're looking for a left-hand bat in the outfield because that could be a guy that, look, he can help platoon. You can give Myers a break. You can give McCormick a break. And, we know what McCormick can do with the bat. So I think he's going to have an opportunity. And then if he shows, he's not going to turn the corner, then we may have to make some type of move before the deadline. But I think it's important to try to give McCormick a chance to come back. However, if there's an opportunity for a left-hand bat in any of our discussions, we'll make that move, and then we'll adjust with McCormick and whoever we sign or Myers. There'll be plenty of playing time for those two spots. With Tucker being your everyday right fielder, but we're keeping our eyes open for a good left-hand bat in the outfield. If that happens, we'll be excited.
How does Melton factor in all this?
Yeah, Melton could be a big boy. If Melton, becomes that young player that we think he could become, then he may jump up there and the job may be his. You just never know with these young players. I mean, could he come in and have a great spring and start off real well in the minors and be in the big leagues making an impact? Yes, he has that type of potential. And we would love for him to really turn the corner at this point in time. That would be outstanding, because now we would be in a position where he could play every day, and that would be great. That'd be great for the team, and it'd create some more competitiveness in the outfield, and then maybe guys will turn the corner and step it up, and it'd be a good problem to have if Melton turns the corner right now and becomes that guy that could play every day at the big league level.
In terms of opportunity depth chart leash, do you have Chaz above Myers?
Yeah, I mean, Chaz is a more proven bat. Myers is a more proven defender, although Chaz is a pretty good defender. He can play all three outfield positions. And so in terms of the best combination of hit and defense, yeah, I would say McCormick's ahead of him. I mean, he's shown it. The over 850, the over 850 OPS or whatever it was, between 800 and 850, and the 22 home runs that he hit in 2023, that's a pretty good player. It was above average to plus defense with those kind of numbers offensively. That's a really good player. We didn't get that last year, right? We know that could come back. Right there toward the end of the season, he started to swing the bat a little bit better, but of course the season ended pretty quickly. So, but I would see he's more of a total package, whereas Myers is a really good defender in center field.
As you're looking at bats, when we talk about left-handed bat, I think, and we talked about this a little bit, but the profile of your offense last year was very aggressive, a lot of first pitch swinging, and chased a lot. Are you looking for someone a little more patient, a little that can get the on base, that has a little higher on base percentage, is a little bit more not passive, but just a little bit more selective?
Yeah, great question. So at the end of the season, we had a great meeting with our hitting coaches, and we talked to them about this very thing. About, look, guys, let's get our guys to be a little bit more patient. Let's get the pitch count up from the starters a little bit more, and let's get back to playing that type of baseball. So we've had that discussion. So in acquiring players, if we can get a player like that, left-hand bat, that sees a lot of pitches, look, that's huge for us, right? And we would definitely take that type of guy. That would be a priority for us. But with that said, we're also trying to correct that within our roster right now, and let our guys know, and we had the conversations with the coaches, let them know, look, this is what our goal is. We need to start seeing more pitches. We've been far too aggressive, too early in the count. Second and third, no outs. We're swinging at breaking balls early in the count. We need to get away from that. We need to hunt the fastball. We need to be a little bit more patient and aggressive in zone, not so much aggressive out of the zone. And I think if we can do that, that's going to make a big difference.
But where's the balance there? Jose Altuve's been he's swung a ton his whole life. You just have a lot of players on your roster that's just what they do. Yeah. So where's the balance of not wanting them to not be who they are?
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with Altuve, look, he's aggressive, right? Let's make no mistake about it. He loves to swing the first pitch of the game. Yeah. But the challenge with Altuve is we'll challenge him and say, look, you're batting this when you swing at the first pitch. This is what you're batting when you take the first pitch, and you're less aggressive. And I think those conversations were starting to happen toward the end of last season, and I think they're going to carry over into this season. If we can get him to be a little bit more patient, I think he's going to even be better. I mean, he's really good right now, but he could be even better. He teetered there right at the 800 OPS. He was going up and down, and he'll tell you this: there were a few games where he just gave away at bats. And when you give away at bats, sometimes it affects you, and it affects your overall output. But, I mean, make no mistake about it, this guy is really good. I mean, he could hit. But, if we can get him to be a tick or two better in terms of being patient, I think it could really help him. And I think he understands it. They've had conversations with him.
Who else was in the meeting with?
Yeah, so it was our hitting coaches and front office members, and of course the manager, and we had a nice conversation about, look, let's train these guys to get back to where they were before. Let's be a little bit more patient, and let's make the starter work and get the pitch count up. And as a result, our production is going to be better.
Aside from Melton, are there specific hitters where you feel like?
Yeah, I mean, Pena, he chases early in the count. Diaz chases early in the count. And these guys just require a little bit more patience. And they're so talented. These guys are talented hitters. And if you become more patient, I really feel like that patience is going to be contagious. Other guys will see more pitches as well, will grind at bats, and it'll put us in a way better position to score runs and be more productive.
You guys have had a lot of success over the last several years with your bullpen and everything like that. What goes into building a good bullpen, a position that has so much volatility? Like, what do you guys look for?
Yeah, I mean, I give Josh Miller and Bill Murphy credit. I mean, these guys are some of the best in the business. I love what they do with these pitchers. They really get them to focus on, what their strengths are, and then they start to work on improving their weaknesses. You take a guy like Kikuchi, who came over from Toronto. We just changed his pitch usage a little bit, got him to throw the slider a little bit more, and ultimately Kikuchi threw the ball better. And I think that's a testament to our pitching guys, that we give these guys really good information, they make adjustments, and they get better. And I think Josh Miller and Murphy, they've both done a really good job of getting our pitchers to buy in and to understand this is what you could do to have more success, and they get them to do it. I mean, even Neris, when he came back, he had gotten away from his fastball that takes off at the top of the zone. They got him back to throwing that fastball a little bit more, and so it leads to more production. And so our guys are very focused on that, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. Now, you need pitchers with talent, right? So our guys have the talent, but they also have the makeup and the aptitude to adjust to our pitchers.
Is there anything when you're looking for guys in free agency, like 300 career appearances? It seems guys, just are awesome for several years and then they just fall off the earth. Like, is there any secret to evaluating that group of guys?
No, it's just the game today, right? So you have all this information, and sometimes these hitters, they study you, the film, they look at it, and so they try to find those weak spots and they try to exploit you. Particularly when you're like 2 for 15 or 2 for 20 against them. And then they start to learn, this is where he likes to throw to. And then hitters make adjustments as well. And so it's this constant cat and mouse of going back and forth. And, you have to make adjustments. And those guys who don't have a teachable spirit or the aptitude, they sometimes get lost in the sauce.
I'm asking this because every fan yelled at me about it all year, but hitting coaches in general, I think, get a little bit too much grief just because of how the games were. Like, in general, what do you think of the job that Snicker and Centrone did this year? And just, I mean, it's been the same hitting coaches for the last 6 or 7 years, and you guys have always had a pretty prolific offense. So I guess, can you kind of evaluate the job they did and just how they factor into your overall offensive approach?
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes they say the hitting coach is only as good as the production that the players are putting out, right? The guys are producing and they look great. Oh, the hitting coaches are great, right? You can't blame the hitting coaches for everything, right? I mean, at some point, as a hitter, I listen to these hitting coaches talk to the players, and at some point, as a hitter, you have to have that teachable spirit. You have to buy into what they're telling you, And oftentimes guys will like not buy in early enough, and then they'll buy in a little bit later, and then they'll realize like, oh, this thing is unraveling on me, you know. And so I think you can talk to the hitting guy to make sure that he's at least sticking with the basics and giving the hitter everything he needs to be at least have the floor of having a good at bat, right? And those are simple things like get your hands ready early, don't jump out on your stride, just keep it simple. I think our guys do a pretty good job of keeping it simple, and sometimes our hitters try to do too much, and then they get themselves in trouble. And so a lot of times the hitting coaches get, dinged because, maybe the player isn't having that great of a year. But I cannot blame my hitting coaches on the year that McCormick had, because McCormick took responsibility himself, right? And so I don't know if we should be in the business of blaming coaches for a lack of production, particularly, as you said, when these same players have had success with these same hitting coaches. And so, if there's something other than that the hitting coach isn't doing, okay, then I can understand that. If the hitting coach is not really spending a lot of time with each guy, or if he's spending too much time with one guy or something like that, and he's not spreading himself around, all right, then we may have to address that. But ultimately, I don't think it's good to be in the business of blaming the pitcher coach.
Speaking of coaches, letting Gary go and getting Tony in, is that just more, did you guys want a dedicated infield coach? Just like someone more that could focus with the infielders?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
So good question. At the end of the season, Joe and I got together and, we evaluated the entire staff. And, I talked to Joe, and, Joe basically, talked about maybe, is there something we could do to upgrade? And we had the conversation. And so, when you hire a manager, and he's downstairs every day with the players and the coaches, you have to give him some flexibility to have his opinion. So you have conversations. And, after our conversation, we decided, like, look, do you think we want to make a change in this area? And Joe wanted to make a change. So you have to have that flexibility, and you have to have that communication. And then I feel like Joe had a vision of maybe having a guy with more of an infield background, is what it seemed like. And, having a guy like, Tony coming in, Perez Chica, he's a really good infield guy. I think he's going to take our infield guys to another level. Seems like a really good baseball man. And, I think every year you have to evaluate your coaching staff. The general manager and the manager have to evaluate the coaching staff and say, hey, are there areas where we feel like we can get better? Gary's had great success here. He's been a part of the winning for 10 years, and he's had a really good run here. And so this is not like a knock on Gary. It's just that Joe saying, look, I think we can get better in this area, and we had a conversation, and, we decided to make the change.
You guys conversation about is using Diaz a little more than something discussed at all, or are you guys committed to him?
I just think like using Diaz in a left-hand pocket when there's a left-hand starter going, and not using Singleton is something that's smart. Because Singleton really doesn't hit lefties. He's much better against righties, and so and giving him some of those at bats, I think that's pretty good. I mean, we use Caratini. I think what Joe did was he kind of went with the guy who was swinging the bat, and sometimes you have to do that, as a manager. The guy swinging the bat well, you stick with him, you go with him, and you try to ride it as long as you can ride it. We had streaks of the season where Singleton was swinging the bat well. And we had streaks of the season where he wasn't swinging it as well. And so I think Joe did a good job of mixing and matching to try to find the best offensive production.